I'm just going to show you my experiments with Cosclay. I used the doll, which was a warm beige skin type colour, and the medium sculpt, which was grey, with various armatures, a little hand, thicknesses of wire, and various items underneath, such as black wrap and then the metal mesh. They were all baked for between 30 and 42 minutes in our 3D workshop oven. So the first one is a twisted rope using the doll, and this one is really bendable. It's very thin, but you can see with no wire in it, it just bends back to its original position. And then here is a small hand armature with simple wire and a little bit of masking tape underneath, and I'm having to use quite a bit of pressure to bend it, but the thinner fingers are bending okay and they're not bouncing back, which is good. So you can see they're not moving back, but I think it's because they're thinner. I have to put quite a bit of pressure on it, so I don't know how easy that would be if you're trying to animate it. See if I can get them to bend round a bit more. And they are slightly resistant to that. But up, and then where I'd put some markings to indicate a knuckle on a finger, it's actually split at that point, which is a shame. All the other fingers seem to be able to bend a lot more, and I wonder if that's because the material is slightly thicker across the top of the finger on the little finger. But all the others seem to work okay, and they all obviously sit back into their original baked position. And then one of these, this one has the black wrap or cine foil underneath, which usually you can use to put under material and it will bend and it will stay. But the rubbery quality of the Cosclay means it just wants to return to that original baked position, which in this case was flat, and I'm surprised at how bendy that is. But I mean, the Cosclay takes kind of a texture quite well. This is just a flat one. This one's got the metal mesh underneath, and again you can bend it a lot without it cracking, but it does just spring back into the baked position. The little grey one, which was supposed to be kind of like a scarf that I textured as well, that has got 4 folds of black wrap on it, and I thought that would hold it better, but it is still coming back into its baked position. And as I fold it, I've got these kind of pockets or little bubbles coming up in the centre there, and I think I could probably eliminate that by maybe gluing the Cosclay to the black wrap, but I didn't with these experiments because I wasn't sure whether that sort of thing would happen or not, but it does because it makes a big pocket under there. This is just like a small stamper, so it's really thick, it's really hard to bend, but if you're using it to give textures to something else, which was the idea behind this little piece, then it'll do its job. And then we'll look at that bigger hand. So the hands are quite big and quite thick and quite solid. I am getting some bend, but that's ripped off of the KNS tube straight away, which is unfortunate. I could maybe glue it down, it might glue down. And then let's see how the fingers go. So these are quite a bit chunkier than the smaller hand, which seem to bend okay, and I'm really having to squeeze quite hard here to try and get the thumb and little finger to meet, and it's slowly moving back into position. If I move these fingers round, you'll see it just sort of slowly bend back into position, even though I'm bending it round quite far, which is a shame. These do only have 2 pieces of 1.25mm wire underneath, so maybe a different wire might help stop that from bending back, and I've got some tests of that later. But this is how it is with our standard hand armature that we've been working on recently in the university, and it just slowly bends back. Where it's quite thick on the thumb, it just doesn't really want to go, it's so thick. But I mean, yes, it is kind of rubbery, but when it gets thicker and thicker, the more and more solid it gets. And again, where I've put a knuckle indentation on the Cosclay, it has split when I've bent it. And you can see how thick the Cosclay is in there. And I reckon if I push these ones as much, then they might split as well. Yeah, you can see that one starting to tear as well. And the grey one, this one is actually, I would say, a bit thicker, so I'm going to have the same problems, but I'll go through trying to bend all of the fingers and we'll probably end up with the same results. Yeah, just bending back. No matter how far I bend it round. Oh, okay. So bend it too far and it will split again. That seems to be a weak point. If you put markings on top of it, like I was putting for like linear markings of where knuckles etc were on a hand, and it's actually using that as a weak point, and I'm having to push really hard on this. You can see how thick it is on the palm there. It's really not wanting to bend. And the wrist, thick again, and it won't bend. This bit hasn't got any wire in it. I just wanted to do one of these sort of curly-whirly tests, and it bends and springs back quite well. It's still quite rigid, I would say, even though it's slightly flexible. Then this is a tiny little kind of like lasso type thing, and that bends out really nicely. I don't feel like this is going to break at all, and it snaps back into the baked place. And again, this has no wire in it, no wire in that one. That's quite nice. And then these three sort of hooks, they've all got different size wire in. So let's start with the thinnest one, which is this one, 1.25mm. You can see it's got a simple sausage of the Cosclay around it. So the 1.25 is bending back. It's easier to bend than the fingers. It's much easier to bend than the fingers, but it is not staying in place. And I can't see any splitting, even though I feel like I'm bending it further round than the fingers. But because it's totally smooth and soft, I haven't got any weak points, I think. But yeah, that's just bending back. So the 1.25 wire is not working on this thickness of Cosclay. Let's try the 1.6. Ah, that's staying in place, so that's moving a tiny bit. So if I go back to the 1.25, yeah, that's, if I bend it exactly the same, bends back to the 1.6, bend it exactly the same. Yeah, that's staying. So the 1.6 is acceptable, I would say. Let's see if we can bend that round. So no splitting again. Feel like I'm bending it more than the fingers, and it's fine. But it's totally soft, totally smooth. It's working well. Yeah, it's just a bit thinner than the fingers, but I do wonder if those marks are what's making a weak point. So let's see what the 2's like. Oh, the 2 feels really good, really solid. I don't think that's moving at all, and that's quite, I mean, it's quite a thick bit of wire, but yeah, it's staying there even though I've bent it almost all the way back. And I could not do that with the finger armatures inside the Cosclay. Bend it the other way as well. Yeah, don't seem to be having any signs of cracking on that. So let's see if we can straighten out the bit that was curved. Yeah. No problems there. And it's staying in place, so I can get that really straight. See if I could do that with the 1.6. Is that going to stay straight for me? Yeah, it's not too bad actually. I'll do it with a 1.25, but I don't think that's going to work so well. I think that's going to try and spring back. But that's why I did a curved end and a straight bit. Right, so I've got this last little curly bit here. I was just trying to get a really tight curl, unlike the one earlier with the doll, which seemed to work quite well. Let's see how springy this one is. I'll rotate it round as well. That seems to spring back nicely. Oh, okay. So I was twisting it as well as pulling it out, and that has, well, that's just breaking and breaking and breaking. That's ridiculous. So I don't quite know what happened there. As soon as it broke once, it just seemed to keep on breaking. So we're going to say that's a fail. So I'm going to put all these on this side, which I think don't work. Maybe they broke or they're not staying in place. So the hands that side, curly whirly, and the rope one, and the littler hand I think was marginally a success. And then those bits on that side were definitely fails. The fingers broke. I know that one broke, but the rest of the hand is okay. So I'm going to say that's more of a success. It's just a shame about that, and I do wonder if that was because it was a bit thicker on the top of the model. But there we go, that is my Cosclay experimentation.